So good afternoon. It's wonderful to see everybody that's here. And just a reminder, it's Giving Day. There is a fund that you can match where I can match for you. If you want to give to the Innovation Fund, you can make me pour today. So everybody's invited to be a part of that. But what I'm so honored to be here for if any of you are new to our campus, I'm Ellen Neufeld. I'm the president of Cal State San Marcos. And I am so thrilled to have students, faculty, staff, and guests from across the region here. And I want to thank you so much for being here because what an important day it is. I am so honored that our campus was selected as one of the regional forums. And I'm really grateful to the CSU Board of Trustees Special Committee for being here because what our Board of Trustees and California State University has shown me in my almost 6 months here is that it's about listening to the community and supporting our students. And they have really made that true to form and by doing these forums for us. So I'm so honored to get to introduce the one here. It's such important work to bring in this feedback to make sure that we move forward in our quest to support our students, their success, and the great CSU. So of course, I'm partial. I think CSUSM is the best, but the great CSU overall. So welcome your comments today. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our chair, Jean Picker-Furstenberg.
Thank you for joining us today. The California State University Board of Trustees has the responsibility to appoint the Chancellor, 23 presidents, and vice chancellors. In the last 7 years, 21 new presidents have been appointed. And now we have the awesome responsibility to appoint the chancellor of the entire system. Obviously, we take this very seriously, but we need your help. And we're very grateful to you to come and be with us after Thanksgiving and before finals week. So we know this isn't easy timing for anyone. My name is Jean Picker-Furstenberg. Adam Day, our chair, asked me to chair this committee. I've been on this campus many times, and I know many of you in the audience because I chaired the committee that selected Ellen Neustad. So to say I feel connected is an understatement. Those of you who know me know that I have devoted my life to the art of the moving image, and basically to storytelling. To storytelling using moving images, I think is a way that we communicate really emotionally, intellectually, and incredible ways that artists can help us understand ourselves and our times. And we need them now more than ever. I'd like you to meet my colleagues up here, because each of them has an incredible story. And we're so grateful that they are part of the CSU family. Peter?
Thank you, Jean, and good afternoon, everybody. Peter Taylor, I'm a member of the CSU Board of Trustees, appointed by Governor Jerry Brown about 4.5 years ago. On the board, I did a 2-year stint as chair of the Finance Committee, and I currently chair the Educational Policy Committee. I also chair our small but mighty investment committee that manages the CSU's funding resources. I spent most of my career as an investment banker, and after that ceased to be fun on September 15th, 2008, I decided to become Chief Financial Officer for the University of California system, where I served for 5 years before retiring, and now running a small foundation that focuses on post-secondary education student success throughout the nation.
Good afternoon. I'm Wenda Fong, and I am a producer and director, creative executive in the entertainment industry. I have been a trustee for a little more than a year and a half. This is my third visit to the great CSU San Marcos. Thrilled to be here. And to be a trustee is truly the greatest honor and privilege. I'm so proud and thrilled to be representing our almost 500,000 students, our 53,000 faculty and staff. And this is, as Jean said, the most important job that we have as a trustee. My major when I was in college was Asian American Studies, and so diversity is something that's critical to me in my life. So I'm going to pass it on. Thank you.
Good afternoon, San Marcos. My name is my name is Robert Collins. I am a professor of American Indian Studies at San Francisco State University. I'm also the vice chair of the statewide academic senate.
Hi everyone, my name is Juan Garcia. I am the voting student trustee. I am a fourth year political science major at Cal Poly Pomona, hopefully graduating in May.
Good afternoon, my name is Silke Hewitt. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff at the Chancellor's Office, and I'm a proud alum of Cal State Long Beach, where I studied business and education. It's a true pleasure for me to be here at San Marcos, and I'm honored to be part of today's process.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Karen Nakai, and I'm Chief of Staff for the Chancellor.
Good afternoon. My name is David Belshaw. I'm with the search firm supporting this committee, and also was part of the presidential search here at San Marcos, so it's nice to be back. And also started my educational journey at the CSUs, and so it's always nice to be on campus with all of you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carly Davenport, and I'm also here with the search firm.
Good afternoon. I'm Evelyn Nazario. I'm the Vice Chancellor for System-Wide Human Resources at the Chancellor's Office.
My name is Jeremy Addis Mills. I'm an alumni of Cal State San Marcos. Go Cougars. Graduate of '07. I received a bachelor's degree in women's studies and political science from Cal State San Marcos, and I've been involved in the Alumni Association and the statewide alumni council. So I'm actually here as a representative of the alumni from all 23 CSU campuses. I've served both on our local CSUSM alumni board, and I'm now the president-elect of the incoming. I'm the incoming president-elect for the alumni council on the statewide level. I run a small boutique communications firm here in San Diego, and I'm really excited to be here. I do want to make one final pitch for these mics keep turning off on us for Giving Tuesday. I've already given to Cal State San Marcos for Giving Tuesday, so I hope that at least everybody sitting in this audience today will do the same, and those watching online will give to San Marcos, even if this isn't your campus. Thanks, bye.
Hello, my name is Michael Hendren, and I am the staff representative on the Stakeholder Advisory Committee for the Chancellor Search. I'm a plumber at Sacramento State University, and I'm also the University Staff Assembly President there. I've sat on many nonprofit boards throughout my years, and also do a lot of volunteer work for not only Sacramento State on campus, but also in the local community around Sacramento and the surrounding communities. And I look forward to working with all of these people to find our next chancellor. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Wiafe, and I'm a senior, fourth-year political science major right down the road at San Diego State. It's great to be here at Cal State San Marcos. This is my fourth time here. We actually held our board meeting here in September. Prior to my current role as president of the Cal State Student Association, I served as vice president of external relations for the students at San Diego State. It's great representing the students of the CSU. Thank you for having us.
It's also a pleasure to welcome another CSU trustee who's joined us today. He's the newest CSU trustee, having been appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom. So welcome, Jeffrey Krintz. Thank you for being here. Very kind of you. So, as you know, this listening tour is going to 6 campuses. You are the 5th. We started in Sac State, and then East Bay, and then we were at the Chancellor's office, and then at Pomona. So we're trying to get to hear from as many of you as possible. But there are other ways to communicate with us, and we urge you to share your thoughts not only here but online, and tell all of your friends that they can watch this is being live streamed and will be archived, and you can find all of this on the Chancellor's website, and let me give you the specifics of that. It's at calstate.edu/chancellor-search. You can also send us an email with your thoughts and ideas and suggestions to chancellorsearch@calstate.edu. The bottom line is we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think is important moving forward, because our job is to find the best woman or man to fill this role of leadership and taking the CSU where you want it to be. So it's time for us to listen, and I welcome you to the microphone, and you will have our undivided attention. But thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Who's going to start us off? The bravest person in the room. Thank you. All right. Would you be kind enough, I'm sorry, to share your name and your department so we know who you are?
Yeah, I'm Daryl Engen. I'm a faculty member in the history department here, and I'm also the CFA chapter president here, and I'm a statewide CFA officer. I'm an AVP for President South. And the point I want to make that I think is just absolutely essential for a chancellor of the CSU is to be familiar with and really understand that our faculty is unionized, and be able to work with us rather than in some kind of adversarial role. Because our union, after all, represents the entire faculty in collective bargaining, and this concerns our salaries, our workload, issues like academic freedom, anti-racism, social justice, inclusiveness, et cetera. All of these things that as faculty we value, and which, as we always say, are a matter of our working conditions, and it's these working conditions that establish the student learning conditions. So that has to be the foundations, I think, for any chancellor has to understand that, since it's the faculty that do deliver that education to our students. But seeing as we are the representatives of the faculty in the collective bargaining process, I just, in addition to pointing out how important it is for the chancellor to understand that and be adept at working with us, I think we can already see in this process, the hiring process, the search process, that for some reason that doesn't seem to be on the radar screen in this process, because the Stakeholders Advisory Committee, I noticed, doesn't include a dedicated CFA representative. There are faculty representatives, and that's great, but that's not quite the same thing as somebody who is a CFA representative. And I think that's a terrible oversight, considering that we do represent the faculty in bargaining for our contracts, and that's an area of interaction with the chancellor that's just fundamental. And so not to have us on that stakeholder advisory committee just seems to be a terrible oversight. So I hope that that doesn't continue, that kind of mindset in this process, in the search. I hope you do think a lot about how important the union is in your search for the chancellor. So that's all I'll say for now, but I can always come back for more.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sally Saren Molina. I'm a staff member here in academic scheduling at Cal State San Marcos. I actually have a question for you. Can each of you give me the single most important thing that you think the chancellor should have?
The way we're going to do this is we're listening to you, all of you, across the system and as well as on the website, and then we will share with you a program description, a position description, and opportunities and challenges. And at that time, you'll see all the things that we think are the most important. We don't want to jump in and make that decision until we've heard from everyone and until we've reviewed where we think you want us to go.
So we'll never hear from each of you what you think is important?
You will see our description of the kind of person we're looking for based on what you have told us.
Okay, so no. Okay, well, I'm just going to say as a staff member here, I was also an undergraduate and graduate student at Cal State San Marcos, that one of the most important things that I think is important, and as a staff member here, because as a student, I interacted with faculty, which was great. Here, it's the academics and the faculty are fabulous. However, getting along, moving along, and getting my degree also was heavily influenced by staff. You know, having the staff perspective at this point is also interesting. It led me to a wider appreciation of the staff members and what they do, my colleagues. So at this point, I think that it is really important that the chancellor have some both respect for what the staff do here, as well as care about us. And you know, that goes wider then, but includes salary and supporting our staff unions here on all the CSU campuses. We work really hard, and by and large, my fellow staff members care about our students. We care about them getting graduated. We care about what the chancellor comes out and says, hey, you know, we need to do this or that or the other thing. So that really does affect us. It affects our workload. It affects our livelihood, and that's appropriate. But the amount of care and emphasis that we put on helping our students graduate and making the university a better place really needs to be respected and in some sense rewarded. So I just want to make sure and make you understand, help you understand how important that is.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pam Colbrey. I am faculty here and also work with palliative care. I was one of the founding faculty in the School of Nursing, which I treasure that opportunity. And I just thank you for your service. I am so glad I'm not in your shoes, because I think you do have a big decision to make. So I have a kind of a little bit of a laundry list, and I'm just going to share with you that laundry list without too much context, because I think you can figure out the context. So I would hope the chancellor certainly has a deep focus on education, but I think in the world that we live in, they also have to be business savvy. And thank you, Peter, for whatever support you provide in that business world, but I think whoever we have needs to understand that, because public education financially has changed so dramatically, which I'm sure isn't news to anyone here. The other couple areas that I think are important is that balance between a strong liberal arts education and focus and our professional programs, which are expensive and important to the state and the health of the state of California. And so I would share that important element. Shared governance is certainly important. I think maybe this goes along with the business piece, is the understanding of the expense and development of infrastructure. And I understand that we enjoy being a new campus. I've been on San Diego State's campus, and I've been on other campuses that don't enjoy that newness of buildings. And I understand you have expensive retrofitting to do. And although we would like to build buildings and be higher up on the list, my understanding is that is trumped by infrastructure needs that are more serious. So I would...
But vote yes on Prop 13 in March. Okay. I think it's good for everybody,
Okay.
including San Marcos.
A couple of the other more little specific, I guess, areas, not little, but important specific areas that that person may not have a deep understanding, but would certainly delegate or hire someone to really be focused, as we have been, on online education and helping the different CSUs move that forward. Certainly, part and parcel to me is nursing education, as the future of nursing dictated by 2020 to have nursing graduates all be at the baccalaureate level, and we do produce a high number, but the junior community colleges continue with their high funding to put out AD degree students, which we need RN to BSN online programs to supplement. The other area that I think is very, and I don't know if it's active on other campuses, but I think our Project Rebound, dealing with people from incarceration, is really important, because we have that horrible pipeline of people who are incarcerated that have no place to go when they're out. And I think that's really important to help change our society. And then the other piece that I'm concerned about, and I don't know how to get my hands around, is students who are homeless, students who are hungry, and student debt. I think a chancellor that understands student debt, so students aren't paying their debt when they're 50s and can't pay a mortgage, is important, because I think it's really destructive to our society. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
Hello, I am going to make it higher. I am Sharon Hamill. I am a psychological science professor in child and adolescent development, also the faculty senate chair. I also am a WASC commissioner. Given the recent changes in the accreditation landscape, I think the new chancellor would do well to work very closely with our regional accreditor. We have a standard in the western states in the United States that is admirable. The worry is that as this new accreditation landscape takes place, we may see efforts to make it easier for campuses to receive accreditation. I firmly believe this is about consumer protection of students and their families. When people have sacrificed, as my husband and I did, to get 3 kids through college, we owe it to them to ensure that we have exceptional universities for the students to go to, and that they, echoing Pam's comment, that they're on firm financial footing, so that is a good investment for that family and that student to make. So I know there are lots of conversations coming between our regional accreditor and the new chancellor. I hope that that person appreciates the role that accreditation plays in protecting our students.
Thank you.
Hi.
Make it comfortable.
I'm Vanessa Vincent. I work as an employee in extended learning, and I'm also the CSU EU chapter president for San Marcos. And we really would like a chancellor who is willing to advocate for staff. And I want to take the opportunity to read a letter that Governor Gavin Newsom wrote to the Chancellor Timothy White. Dear Chancellor White, as a California State University negotiates the next contracts with its support staff workforce, I urge the CSU to address a long-standing inequity faced by dedicated and skilled employees who are facing stagnant wages and declining market rate salaries due to a lack of merit steps. As you are aware, Assembly Bill 369, authored by Shirley Weber, moved through the legislature this year with bipartisan support, which would have provided annual merit salary intermediate step adjustments for the CSU support staff employees meeting satisfactory performance standards. This followed a similar legislative proposal last year. Building upon these legislative efforts, it is my expectation that the CSU tackle this issue head-on during upcoming collective bargaining negotiations. In 1996, the CSU halted merit salary steps for support staff, and despite workers' attempts to negotiate increases, they have not been reinstated. Meanwhile, the executive and manager salaries have climbed, creating a significant hardship for the most loyal support staff, as well as a growing sense of inequality on campuses. The troubling absence of merit salary steps takes the biggest toll on the most long-serving workers, who fall further behind their more recently hired colleagues each year they serve our students. Moreover, the CSU is the only state agency that does not provide salary steps to its staff. The CSU is an economic engine for our state, and thanks in large measure to your leadership, we are witnessing historic increases in the amount of students who graduate. In order to sustain that commitment, you must take proper care of the tens, thousands of support staff who represent the backbone of the CSU 23 campuses. The upcoming negotiations should result in an agreement with our labor partners that erases the inversion gap, provides salary steps, and fairly and justly compensates these staff for their hard work. As a longtime CSU trustee, I have appreciated our partnership and know you share my commitment to treating our dedicated staff with the dignity and respect they deserve. It is my firm belief that addressing this wage inequity is long overdue and in line with the institution's values. As you complete the final year in your exemplary service as Chancellor of California State University, I know that we can work together on this important goal. Sincerely, Governor Gavin Newsom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Geck. I work in facilities development and management here on campus, and I've got a few things that I want to bring to your attention. The first one, I used to actually be the vice president for organizing for CSUU, so I attended plenty of trustees meetings. Some of you might remember me. But one thing I did notice is that there is no staff representative on the Board of Trustees. So I'd like a chancellor that would work hard to get a representative for staff on the board. We're the only constituency in the CSU that doesn't have a representative. We have Hollywood represented, we have Jack in the Box represented a while ago, we've got other people throughout the state, not to say they're any less or any worse, but I just feel that staff really do deserve a voice on that board. We did have a bill that was pushed to get us a staff member, and we know that there were some back channels that happened from the CSU to kill that. So we would like to see some support for that from the next chancellor. We'd also like to see somebody that, as Vanessa mentioned earlier, really cares about staff, and not just in words and platitudes, but in actual action. Raises have always been a contentious issue. We have many staff who are living close to or even under the poverty line. That seems to be a shame in such a great system. We should be living at least a livable wage if we're coming to work every day and doing a job that we all love and that we care about. So to that end, I would like to see the CSU work for more funding for the CSU. I know that there have been large efforts to get a bigger piece of the pie from the state budget. I'd like to see the pie get bigger. I've seen plenty of trustees talk about their experience when they went through the CSU and how they paid $5 a semester or $60 a semester or $100 or $200. And as we know, the students are paying much more than that now. And at the same time, in almost the same breath, vote to raise tuition. I know that that's not something that is under your control at that very moment, but I do believe that the CSU, along with the rest of the campus communities, not just at the chancellor's level, but on each campus, there's plenty of people out there that can talk to their legislators. we need to get more funding for the CSU in general. So I think that's something that the Chancellor could definitely spend some time focusing on. And I do believe that we need somebody that is not going to run the CSU like a business. It's a public service, and it needs to be treated as such. Now, I'm not saying don't be frugal, don't spend money wisely or anything like that. But what I am saying is, a business in the American sense is something that looks out for its own interests and looks out for the shareholders. Well, we're all shareholders in California, and it seems that some of the stakeholders within the CSU are left behind, and it seems to be coming from the top down, in that there's no one at the very top pushing for a more compassionate and a more considerate way of dealing with all campus constituencies, and I'm speaking for staff in particular. And that ties to more of a social justice kind of bent that I tend to have, and so I'd like to see a chancellor that really embraces social justice causes and allocates resources to ensure that the People's University is acceptable or is accessible to all Californians. Lastly, I don't see any CSUEU represented staff are on here, and we're a pretty big. Is there one? I just want to make sure. Who's?
I'm Unit 6. I'm a Teamster.
Okay, so we have the Teamsters represented, and I think that's awesome. But we're missing. How many people do we have in our? We got 16,000 employees up and down the state that have no voice on this panel here, and so that just seems to be indicative of some of the things that I mentioned earlier, where staff voices are silenced. And the only time that our voices seem to get heard is when we get rowdy. I actually organized a protest in front of the Chancellor's office a few years ago, and we did get some attention at that point. We'd like to be able to be part of the process. We'd like to have our voices join in your chorus to help give a more well-rounded approach to things like this. And that goes at the campus level as well at the system-wide level. Lastly, I'm going to be leaving early because we have some free food that's going to be served up on campus. And I'm going to go get some free food for my family. And I'm going to do that because my salary doesn't cut it. When it gets to the last week in the month, we're struggling just to keep food on the table. As Vanessa mentioned earlier, those 5% salary steps would help me tremendously and help my family tremendously. My special needs child and my wife, who's doing the best she can to keep our family going. So I didn't want to just throw these things out there. I want there to be a personal face to this because, I come here every day. I love this place. I could go make more money somewhere else, but I'd be putting money into somebody else's pocket. I'd be working for profit for somebody else. I don't want to do that. I don't want to set that example for my kids. I want them to grow up with a public servant parent so that they understand their obligation in the future to serve the public as well, in any capacity that they decide to. But it's also really challenging for them to see us struggle at the end of the month, knowing that I'm a public servant. So I'm hoping that the next chancellor will do something to mediate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Just quickly, my name's Pam Rodella. I am a lecturer on campus. I have been a temporary faculty for almost 15 years now. And so I know plenty of other lecturers like myself who we've been part of the faculty, which I know that you all know that the contract classifies all of us as faculty. There's really not a difference between tenure track and lecturer faculty as far as the bargaining contract goes. But, on campus, there's definitely differences that people experience, and it's just for a lot of us that are, have been temporary, and some I know for 20, 30 years, something about funding faculty hiring resources with an emphasis on converting long-term lecturers would be something that the new chancellor should be aware of, maybe, at least. But also just recognizing our dedication to the profession, right? But otherwise, I just wanted to be the voice for the lecturers, if you needed one.
Thank you. Please feel free to stand and go ahead. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Jolie Proudfit. I am Luceño, Payancuichum from this land here that Cal State San Marcos is on. I am a product of the CSU system. I did my undergrad at Long Beach State, and I received the forgivable loan, maybe, 25 years ago, I guess. Do you know that the forgivable loan is still only $30,000? It was $30,000 25 years ago, and it's still $30,000. Education has increased. I know you all are aware of that, so we might want to look at that to make sure that we're using that incentive to bring faculty to our beautiful CSU system, which is an important system in the largest university system on the planet. So I would hope that the new chancellor looks at reinvesting in that system, because those of us who participated, we only had to participate by paying back after 6 years, and I've been teaching in the CSU now for this is my 25th year. So I would like to see that addressed. And then also an investment in our American Indian students, staff, and faculty. There are 109 federally recognized tribes in the state of California, more than any other state, as I'm sure some of you are aware. Here in San Diego County, we have 18 reservations. My reservation is 6 miles outside of San Diego County. We have about 35 tribes within driving distance from this campus, so we have the highest American Indian student population per capita. We're at 4% American Indian student population, when most CSUs are at 0.3%. I say this because if you build it, they will come. And we've had the good fortune of being a fairly young campus, and a young campus that engaged our tribal sovereign nations early on so that we could build our tribal initiative brick by brick and invest in that way with not only resources, but human capital and capacity. And we need to continue to grow that. So with the 4% American Indian student population, that's the highest of any university in the state of California, public or private. We need to invest so we can grow and retain those students. I am one faculty member and the chair of the American Indian Studies Department. I didn't even introduce myself. Dr. Jolie Proudfit, Pechanga Band, Nyesikat Clan, director of the California Indian Culture and Sovereignty Center. It's the only research center of its kind in the state, and which exists off of state funds. So we're primarily funded by tribal support and outside grants, but I also chair the American Indian Studies Department, so you're getting 2 for 1. I'm literally doing the job of 2 people because I have to. And if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. We have a new president here, and I have great hopes for all the work that she's going to be doing, and I know she's been meeting with our Native Advisory Council and listening about our tribal initiatives, and so I do think the future is bright for us, but I also think it behooves the Chancellor's office and the new Chancellor to understand that there's no one-size-fits-all. We don't necessarily have to have an investment in all 23 campuses that's equal to for equitable purposes. If Native students are coming here and we can do community-based participatory research in our communities because we have reservations who are willing to open their doors to them and engage with our students, then why aren't we investing in those campuses and building the best possible American Indian Studies program here? This is where students are, this is where the tribes are. So I would encourage the new chancellor to really look strategically and to make sure that the investment in each of the campuses really fits those communities in which they serve. And to look at issues of tribal sovereignty, to make sure that, when we're looking at American Indians, that we're looking at us through a political lens, not through a racial lens. I'm really tired of hearing the old, trite, illegitimate argument about Prop 209 when it comes to tribes. Tribal sovereignty has existed long before Prop 209. That's a race-based piece of legislation. We have political status. We predate any of those types of conversations. And I have worked with many, maybe not many, I guess we've only had 2 chancellors since 1987. Yeah, the other one was here for a long time. And they've been very hesitant to address the issue of American Indian identity, arguing, I guess legal counsel arguing on the grounds of Prop 209. American Indians, if you mark the box that you're American Indian and Latino, the way it's set up through the Office of OMB is that they only count Latino. Your American Indian identity gets erased. The Chancellor's Office has a tribal initiative. We met 2 months ago to discuss this issue again. And one of the things that we figured out was to have I don't know, it's the ITS office or whoever does the data counting of students to not just depend on the basic data that looks at one identity marker so that we can have an accurate count. And then to be proactive by delivering that accurate count to our campuses individually so that each campus knows how many American Indians are on their campus so that they're being served. With 109 federally recognized tribes, we are often marginalized, overlooked, and completely ignored. And even when we're talking about issues of diversity, American Indians are overlooked and ignored. This new piece of legislation on ethnic studies is a step in the right direction of trying to look at addressing issues of diversity and equity, but when you only have 4 of the 23 campuses with American Indian Studies majors and departments, again, I can't help but feel like American Indian in our history and our political status is not going to be acknowledged, and I think that's really important for students, especially if they plan to live and work in California, to know a little something about tribes. We're amongst the largest employers in the state, not to mention the county. And so I think that needs to be respected, and I'm hoping this new chancellor can invest in his or her tribal initiative and to look at our campuses and lend a hand to our new president who's here on our tribal lands working with our tribes to really acknowledge and honor the work that we've been doing here on the backs of our Native faculty. I'm the only tenure-track person in American Indian Studies. There are 8 lecturers in the department. And I think with the exception of one person, every single one of them is a lecturer who has a PhD. So, 20 years ago, people would tell us, where are all the American Indians with PhDs? We'd love to hire them. Well, they're in our department as lecturers, and they'd love to be hired full-time. So hopefully the new chancellor, him or her, will look at the tribal initiative, invest in the tribal initiative, and support the growth of our American Indian programs. And, I think the work that we're doing here with our 4% American Indian student population deserves more than just, a poster or a print or acknowledgement at the state capitol, but a real investment in our retention and growth. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sasha Renee Perez. I am currently the Student Engagement Manager for the Campaign for College Opportunity, but before that, I was a student at Cal State LA. I started at Cal State LA in 2010 and graduated in 2015. I got my bachelor's in political science and my bachelor's in economics. And after that, after going to Cal State LA and because of all the opportunities the university offered me, I was able to then go on and work in my field, and it's just been so great. It's been such a joy, and when I think about what a chancellor needs to have, a chancellor really needs to understand a student like me, right? Somebody that's coming from a working class family, first in my family to get my degree, and the kind of economic mobility that had on me and my ability both to be able to do this kind of work that's in my field and work that I'm really passionate about, but to also be paid a fair wage to do that kind of work and just how important and impactful that is. Some other things that I'd like to highlight, that we would like to see as the campaign coming for the new chancellor that'll be coming in, is a chancellor that's passionate about the power that higher education has to transform students' lives and build a strong economy, someone that has experience and a plan of action for closing systemic racial equity gaps in higher education access and graduation, someone that's committed and has a clear vision for ensuring the student body, faculty, and administrators reflect the racial, ethnic, and income diversity of Californians. Someone that's going to be an advocate for data transparency and committed to using disaggregated data by race and ethnicity and income to advance and assess all policies and practices. Someone that's an experienced collaborative leader that's going to be committed to working with K through 12, community colleges, the UC, and our private and independent universities as well as external stakeholders, including the civil rights, community, and business organizations. And last but not least, also somebody that has a record and a commitment to operating in an open and transparent fashion with students, the legislature, and the public. Another thing I'd just like to highlight is, we really appreciate the open forum style that you all are pursuing to gain feedback from the public. I think that's really important. As a former student leader, I always want to see students being given the opportunity to offer feedback for what they'd like to see in someone. I was here when Chancellor Reed left, when we brought on Chancellor White. That was right, during my time here as a student. And I'd like to encourage all of you to continue to think about ways that you can continue to make this process transparent. So when you're coming down to your last round of candidates, if that's 2 or 3, giving folks across the state from all 23 campuses an opportunity to ask, those round of 3 some questions, to engage with them, and to really give them the opportunity to get to know the potential new chancellor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you excuse me, I have to run to class afterwards, but my name is Joseph Esparza. I'm a senior here at Cal State San Marcos in history, and I would just like to speak on behalf of 2 things real quick. Firstly, would be for the next chancellor to be open to the idea of academic freedom and to continue that tradition we've had in the Cal State system. I'm sure Michael and Juan, as political science majors, we're in an increasingly polarizing political environment, and I would like to see a chancellor who would support students in pursuing academic freedom on both sides of the political aisle. The second thing I would say is if we could have a chancellor who would recognize that student debt is a crisis, especially for middle-class students. Many upper-class students are able to get their parents or another way to pay their education. Lower class are typically given a lot of grants, but middle-class students are struggling. They graduate 22 years old, $30,000 in debt, and that's quite daunting. So if the next chancellor can just keep that in mind for potential tuition issues as they come up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I said I would be back, so here I am again.
Welcome.
I'm Daryl Lang, now I can go through the list of some of the things that our union is so concerned about. And some of these have been raised before, but I'll say them again just so you know that there are many voices calling for many similar things. And as was just mentioned by a former student of mine academic freedom is a hugely important issue, and the faculty here certainly hopes that the next chancellor will support our faculty in their ability to provide education freely, to research the subjects they want to freely, to speak out freely on issues that they think are important. I would also stress what my colleague Pam said earlier about lecturer faculty and the need for conversion of lecturer faculty to tenure track status. This campus, unfortunately, has one of the worst tenure densities within the CSU system. And it is an ongoing problem throughout all of the campuses, but here in particular. And it's such a shame because so many of our lecturer faculty, they have terminal degrees, they're well qualified, they're proven, excellent teachers, through their experience on our campuses. And it's just such a shame that when we do get the money to hire new faculty, that we don't give our lecturers more consideration. They really should have that. And it makes sense from other perspectives too, just economically, given that they're already in the pension system and so forth. To convert them to tenure track would not require really any additional outlay there. So that is important. And I would also say too that this applies with our mental health counselors. I'm sure you're aware that we've tried to address this issue, the lack of mental health counselors, the poor ratio in the number of mental health counselors to the number of students we have, that we don't meet the standards of the accrediting bodies for that, and that we not only need more mental health counselors, they need to be tenure track as well, because there has been a trend towards limiting the number of tenure track mental health counselors. Turning to students more too, we've heard about student debt and so forth, and that's a huge issue as well. So we would want a chancellor that is committed to keeping tuition stable instead of these constant tuition hikes. A chancellor is committed to getting the kind of budgets that will be able to allow greater access for our students, and also at the same time not put in new barriers that make it more difficult for students to get into the CSU. This is the people's university after all, and it's such an engine for opportunity for individuals as well as for the economy of our entire state. So access is a really important issue there. We would hope that the new chancellor understands our students today, that things have changed over the decades, that our students, are working off campus, families. They come with different levels of preparation coming into the school, all sorts of challenges that maybe students didn't have 20, 30 years ago. And yet we're not providing them with the same level of educational opportunities. As you're aware, CFA did a study a couple of years ago called Equity Interrupted, which showed that at the same time that the student body was becoming more diverse, funding was going down. Now, we don't know why that was happening. We're not necessarily saying there's some conspiracy, that this was a consciously done thing, but when students today are funded at only 40% of what they were funded in 1985, and the demographics has changed so much, it does have really significant implications for where we're going, where we're headed to, and that needs to be reversed. We need to fund our students adequately. And then I would finally say, in terms of the content of their education, that there also seems to be a trend to diminish general education. Now, I admit I'm a little biased as a history professor in how important I think a broad education is, and one that includes humanities as well as STEM subjects. But, as much as the Cal State should be provide our students with the training they need to be, get good jobs and be part of the California economy, we also have to think about the nature of our society. And the ability to understand complex issues and to be responsible voters in our democratic system. And that requires a broader education. We shouldn't turn the CSU into a vocational school just so they can, our students can get a job. Again, that's really important, but it shouldn't be the only thing. And to cut general education, I think, goes toward a trend where you got a kind of a two-tiered system where the CSU just puts out people and get a job, and then you got private universities, UCs, and so forth that are creating the leaders and the innovators of tomorrow, and that shouldn't be the case. The CSU should be a place where everybody has the opportunity to realize their potential, and there's so many people that can be doing such wonderful things in our society, and we don't want to hold them back. We want to give them that opportunity. So that's.
Thanks.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Michelle Ramos Pellicia. I am a doctor in linguistics, and I teach, and I'm an associate professor in the language department. We call it Colonial Language Department for various reasons. I am also vice president of our CFA e-board, and I'm also co-founder and chair of University Without Borders, which is a group of staff, faculty, undocumented students, and sometimes administrators who join us in conversations on how to improve our campus to better serve our students who are mixed status students or who are undocumented. I am here today for various reasons. We keep hearing diversity, 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 right? But I've been doing diversity since I started in higher education in 1990, when my community was told, well, you don't belong here, right? So I'm not from California, evidently, but I see the same story repeated over and over again. Now, my child is right now getting his master's degree, and I ask him, how many people like you do you see in your master's degree? Exactly. So what I'm getting at with this is that some of us are very done with doing diversity. We want to see tangible ways in which we are all implementing social justice, change for social justice. When we hear that we have Indigenous and Native American colleagues who have doctoral degrees and they're lecturers, what are we doing to have more permanent positions, right? What are we doing with our lecturers who are still on contracts? There are ways in which we can implement this. If you see our lecturers, the balance between lecturers and tenure-track faculty is very unbalanced, right? We have the majority of our lecturers teaching our students, and then we have very few tenure-track faculty members. We need to change that, right? And many of those faculty members who are lecturers are people of color and they're women. Right? So there's this joint message that we're sending when we're talking about diversity. We need to be thinking about what social justice entails. I work with undocumented students and students with mixed status families, right? So when they come to me with some of their problems and challenges they face, my degree is in linguistics. I'm not a trained counselor. How are we investing in our Unit 3 colleagues in counseling? Darrell already mentioned that the browner and blacker we get in our student population, the less investment we make. And that is also part of social justice, right? So, since before we've been doing, affirmative action and all that, it is about time that we see tangible changes in the way that we're institutionalizing those changes, right? When we talk about students who need to be served in terms of their mental health, then we need to be investing in our counselors. And investment means having more lines that are dedicated, that instead of serving 1,000 students per counselor, we have more counselors serving less students, right? And that's just an example of a way in which we can implement social justice, and the other way of having more tenured faculty, and then transitioning our lecturers, long-time lecturers, into tenure-track faculty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Pete. I work in IITS at this campus. I made some notes, so I'm going to be referring to them just so I don't go all over the place. I was a student here, and I actually got to come and be admitted when this was still Cal State Jerome's. For those of you who don't know, we started off in a shopping center before we came to this campus. I think I was at this campus in the second semester it was open. As I was going through my education here, I also worked as a student assistant, and now I drive the bus. I'm back as staff. I love it here. I've always loved it here. I love this campus. It's awesome. So I'm going to try and stick to one thing at a time because I have several things that I want to bring up. One of the things, I know you've already heard from staff people, and I'm one of them, and super sorry, but here it is again. When I look at the overall system back about, what are we in, 20 years roughly, there's significant growth in programmatic growth, there's significant growth in FTE, there's significant growth in faculty hiring, there's not significant growth in staff hiring. So if you look at, if I were to chart all this stuff out, you'd have some lines that kind of follow and one line that took a pretty hard dip. That makes it difficult serving students when there's just not enough of us to go around. And on the same, by the same token, were you to let go of all the people who are hired here as emergency staff or temporary staff, you wouldn't have enough staff left to run anything. I don't know exactly why this is, that we hire all our staff as these emergency temp hires, and we keep them that way for years at a shot. But that's what we do, and it just seems pretty backwards to me. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. I don't want to get off track. One of the things that I did want to cover too, I do get, and I've heard this here, like appreciate the staff, and I actually feel appreciated. People tell me all the time, and I think we hear this from the stage all the time. We appreciate you, and appreciation is a different word than respect. I was an English major, I should know. They're two different things, and I can tell you, like, you know what? I just appreciate the hell out of you guys for coming here. That doesn't mean that I respect you, and this is. As a staff member, this is something, it's a finer point that has bothered me for a while, to hear over and over and over how appreciated I am. Yet, I am not respected, and I am not respected because, he left to get free food. But that's pretty much the same boat I'm in. I've worked here for a long time as staff. I am not a quarter of the way through my pay range. I've worked here since, I was trying to figure out, 1997 or 1998. I can't remember which. I've worked here that long as staff, and I'm not a quarter of the way through my pay range. Vanessa read the letter that's from Governor Newsom. It was written to Chancellor White. Maybe Chancellor White won't be here while we're negotiating, so I would really appreciate it if the next Chancellor would just hear that person's name rather than where Chancellor White's name was, or is. So yeah, I wanted to, I hope I kind of made that point of where you appreciate somebody for the job that they do. Respecting them is something different, and respecting them to, like, you can appreciate me that I do my job and that I do it well, but respecting me for doing my job well would be paying me for doing my job well and making sure that that's maintained, that I can continue to maintain myself in order to come in here and continue to do a good job. While we don't necessarily, I mean, I suppose some of us engage students, some of us don't, but we are the men and women who operationalize the CSU. Yeah, there's a couple more things that I wanted to hit, and one of this speaks to the temporary staff and kind of what I've said about not having enough staff members. I wanted to hit being told that more of the same work isn't more work just doesn't even make sense. But that's a message that we're given, is more of the same work isn't more work. Well, it just doesn't make sense. So I would appreciate it if we could have a chancellor next time who will not support that kind of, in my opinion, nonsense. And the last thing that I wanted to hit is bullying. We had a chancellor before this one who didn't really support having an initiative in anybody's contract toward bullying. We've had a chancellor now, we currently have a chancellor now who has not supported having anything in the contracts about bullying. I sure would like it if the next one would actually take that seriously and have some method of dealing with bullying when it pops up. I've been here for a long time, and I've been active in the union for a long time, and I've seen it quite a bit. I work for a fantastic manager who I'm very happy with, and it gives me a great place to support other people who are not as lucky as I am in the CSU. And I've seen it for a long time. And I have not always worked for a great manager. I have worked for managers who were very bullying. I'd go home and have nightmares about my work. It was some of the departments that I've worked here on my way up were crazy, and I'm happy to be in the department that I'm in now. This is something that I worked toward being in. I'm in it. I have a great manager. I'm happy. There are other people who do not have it like I have it, and it is awful to see them working. You know, not only maybe being a long-term temp, maybe still years here and at the bottom of their pay range, but then also being treated as less than because I don't know why. Because they're not a manager? I have no idea. I have no idea why people get treated this way. But it isn't right. And I would like it if the next chancellor would support that, would support a step toward eliminating bullying in the CSU. That'd be fantastic. Anyways, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Every one of these listening sessions has been fascinating because they're all different. And it's very valuable for us to hear what you care about, what the issues are that you are dealing with. I think this has been an incredibly articulate group of women and men who've shared things that you are obviously passionate about. And I think that in a wonderful way, you represent what the CSU stands for. I know this is a difficult time of year. I know that everyone is incredibly busy. But I cannot thank you enough for making the time and thinking about what you wanted us to hear, because we're listening. And I assure you that your message, your caring, and your commitment, we heard it. And we're deeply, deeply grateful. And the CSU is an amazing group of 23 universities. And Cal State San Marcos may be young, but it's incredibly strong. We're very proud of you. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. We're very grateful.